I am a married man. I have to make certain adjustments in my lifestyle.
What's next? A sense of humor?
I have a sense of humor. On the Enterprise, I was considered to be quite amusing.
That must have been one dull ship.
That is a joke. I get it. It is not funny, but I get it.
It's personal for the commander and for Lee, too.
Because of Lieutenant Thrace.
Because of her, and because of Zach Adama.
The commander's dead son.
It's complicated. Take about 3 weeks to explain.
We've got about 3 minutes. Talk fast.
Good day and welcome to Battlespace 9. My name's Carl, and this is episode 3, featuring Deep Space Nine's Change of Heart and Battlestar Galactica's You Can't Go Home Again. Please welcome our guests.
My name is Kitty, and I've been a friend of Carl's for a very long time. We've done a bunch of theater projects together, including 2010, Our Hideous Future, which was even hideouser in 2011 and 2012. The science fiction just kept going, and we've been friends ever since, and done other science fiction-y projects together. I am an actor in Somerville, Massachusetts, and as the Queen Geek at the New England Theater Geek. Very into the arts.
Robin Abrams.
I have no idea, Carl, how we know each other. We just know each other through Facebook, which is
Facebook, yeah.
Yeah, which is just great training for when I'm in the nursing home someday. It's like, oh, you're all so nice, and I have no idea where any of you come from.
That's an important life step to take.
Yes, exactly. It's that transitional period. I am also a actor around the Boston Somerville area. I am a research psychologist and writer, and I have been a Trekkie, oh my goodness, ever since I could remember. And I really, really loved, and Deep Space Nine is just hands down my favorite, although I have to admit I have not seen the crop of new ones for the most part, except for some of Picard. But I love Deep Space Nine, and Battlestar Galactica, when that came along, was also something I really, really loved, at least for a while.
When people no longer sat around the TV and watched cable every week on the correct day at the correct time, I stopped watching a lot of Star Trek, but I still rewatch old Star Trek.
You can kind of tell when TV stopped being for, like, quote, the whole family, unquote.
Oh, yeah.
So I started watching Star Trek as a kid, and it was on right after the Saturday morning cartoons. And then Deep Space Nine was in a constant struggle to include stuff that would not fit in on Saturday morning cartoons.
Yeah.
It's really notable, too, because there was some overlap between DS9 and Star Trek The Next Generation. And Star Trek The Next Generation was, so sexless.
Yes.
Overall.
Except for Riker, who was screwing everything.
Yeah, it would be sort of referred
swear.
To, and then they die or something, and you'd never really see him waking up with somebody or anything like that, and just everybody was very, very chaste all the time, and then all of a sudden we're on Deep Space Nine, and it's and the subjects is wow, you've got polyamory, you've got the BDSM couple. This is just amazing.
Yeah.
Deep Space Nine, I feel was the equivalent of those movies that are just at the end of the Hays Code, where they're come on, you got to let us have a double entendre. Come on,
we all know what we're talking about.
Come on.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yes.
People know where children come from. Let's go.
Exactly.
Let's do this.
Exactly.
They don't come from thin hair. Yeah.
Well, this is a perfect way to segue into our Worf and Dax marriage episode, Change of Heart. Worf and Dax, 2 months into their marriage, are interrupted by a mission from Major Kira. A Cardassian wants to defect, and somebody needs to smuggle him out. Worf and Dax take a runabout, but they have to land a distance from the rendezvous point and cover the rest of the trip on foot. They share some warm, lived-in, married people chemistry until Dax is injured. They make a go of it for a while, but finally Dax can go no further. Worf goes on alone, pledging to pick her up on the way back within 50 hours. Then he stops. He turns back, picks up Dax, and carries her to safety. Dax recovers, but the informant is dead, his potentially life-saving information gone with him. Sisko, though sympathetic, chews Worf out. Worf leaves the room, very sorry, but not sorry. What did you think of Change of Heart?
Worf is always sorry, but not sorry.
Yeah.
That's really his theme song, man.
I had so much sympathy for Sisko in that moment because it's his job. He has chosen, or he was chosen to lead this command. And unfortunately, he's not commanding robots, he's commanding persons. And one of those persons is somebody married to somebody else under his direct command. And Worf shockingly chose love after a long discussion about how he wanted to choose hiking and pain and sweat. And then they go on a hiking, pain, sweat sort of honeymoon situation where they're working together. And then his wife, who he promised to love and choose before anyone else, suffers a near fatal injury, and then he, as promised, chose her, thereby sentencing millions of people to die. But who hasn't been there, you know? Who hasn't been there?
Or as we call it around here, Thursday.
Oh, well, I guess I have to die. Those poor innocents. Oh well. But you win this time, Dominion.
I gotta say, why were they sending them to, why were they sending a married couple out on a mission to begin with? That strikes me as what? And then also,
and where was the commander? Where was Sisko?
Right, Sisko just shows up at the end going, "You two are not sitting together again." You know.
In any other TV show,
you don't get to ride the bus together again.
Where are the parents? Where are the parents? Where are mom and dad?
Yes.
Why is Kira being allowed to do this? Yes, she's second.
Right. Why did they not say, why is this even being allowed? And also,
why is it so hard?
I find it really hard to believe that Klingon religious law, which has got to exist. I mean, halakha sounds like a Klingon term right there.
Yeah.
Why there's got to be some kind of protocol for this.
They do have
I'm pretty sure
conversation where Worf and Jodzia go back and forth. They're well, my job is pretty important to me. So I think it is implied, if not said outright, that the rule is that you do the job. You do the job, screw your romantic or personal relationships, and you get the job done. And in other episodes, Jodzia has been that way. No, my loyalty and my trust is to the job and getting the job done, versus Jodzia also has this duality of, I'm very noble and I'm very loyal. So to my personal relationships, not the doctor. So I'm going to get the job done.
Not you, Yermo.
I'm going to be, she has 200 and something odd years on Worf at being a person.
Yeah.
And he was raised human, but is very tied to his personal culture, and extracting that and being married to a non-Klingon, non-human, must constantly at war. And then it's such an about face for him to come back. You came back for me, you stupid idiot. Thank you for saving my life. Which is romantic and not what Starfleet would have wanted. Which in many cases is fine, but even Sisko says, I would have made the same choice. by the way, you'll never have your own command. But
Wait.
I would have done the same thing.
What's remarkable about Starfleet versus Klingon, first of all, Worf certainly makes his own rules as far as Klingon stuff goes.
He's a cafeteria Klingon.
He's a cafeteria
Picks and
Klingon.
Exactly. He's a cherry picking Klingon.
But he's also, and this is kind of the best thing about him, is that he was a Klingon raised by humans, supposedly in Russia.
Belarus.
Oh, wow. No,
yeah.
I forgot about that.
Belarus,
Yeah.
yeah. That's right.
Oh,
Minsk.
no, that's right. Because he
and-
mentions the mountains.
Mhm,
He's from
Zero
Minsk.
Mountains, yes.
Minsk.
Minsk, yes. His Starfleet heart is the thing that says he should go on. But the Klingon one is like, hell no. And it's remarkable that, he mentions his wedding, and that ceremony is, it's all about two Klingon hearts beating and no one can stand against him. So his view of his Klingon nature is 100%, get out of here and save my Parmakai. What I think is amazing about this episode is nothing really happens that you might not expect. Like it is kind of a trope to be like, but the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the one, but we're going to save the one anyway.
Yeah.
But this feels different. This feels more personal.
What I find interesting is the parallels between Jodzia and Worf, and how Jodzia is very logical and very thinking, and it's why, what's the game, Tongo? She's
Tongo.
playing Tongo with the lobe guys.
Ferengi.
Cork.
Ferengi.
Ferengi, thank you. We're
Lobe
so-
guy.
Okay.
We're just gonna
The
call him
lobe
guy.
guys. Jeez, massive lobes. Look at his lobes.
Dude,
Playing
the
Tongo.
lobes.
The lobes. Playing Tongo, and she's methodical, and she almost wins against Cork, who always wins, probably because he's cheating, which one would expect. He's Cork. He's a Ferengi. The point is to win, not to be honorable about it. And she's methodical, and she doesn't get emotionally involved, which is why she nearly wins against Cork. And Worf is the emotional person who is not methodical and responds emotionally to things. And the parallels are made so clear in this episode, especially when he's like, my career is very important to me. I have to go do this thing. And then because he's so emotional, he made a promise. He made a promise to his wife, and he is banking on that, he's showing up. He's being the guy. He's showing us that even though he's Klingon and he could kill at any moment, he is a stand-up guy and is honoring the promises, the vows of his marriage before his god, which is super romantic, gross and sweaty, but also super romantic.
These are two gross and sweaty episodes, definitely.
Yeah.
I agree, Kitty. And what else is remarkable about that is I think that is the opposite of their public personas. Like, I think most people would on the ship would probably say Worf is the stodgy one, and Dax goes out partying and gambling with the Ferengi and whatnot.
Well, he watches from a safe distance.
What did you think of that scene? I love that scene.
I've always really liked Quark and Jodzia's friendship, and just her general don't give a fuck approach to life. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, I have seen so many things. I have been so many different people. I have had so many different motivational schemas and values and all of that. And hey, this time around, it's like, all the memes about how parents are with their first kid versus their third kid.
Mhm.
With your first kid, they're practically in bubble wrap all the time, and then your third kid, you're like, I go play in traffic.
Right.
I
It's
can
like,
make
okay.
another one. It's cool.
Exactly. It's like Jodzia's kind of like that with the Dax is kind of like that with lives at this point.
Yeah.
First life, ooh, gotta do everything right by seventh or whatever she is. Like, oh yeah, this is just
This body can handle it. It's cool.
yeah, exactly. And that
Death
she's
Schmeth.
and that she's kind of become something of, not in a dysfunctional way, but a bit of an experience junkie. Who am I going to gamble with? Ferengi. Who am I going to marry? A Klingon. She
Okay,
kind of,
let's do this.
yeah, she kind of wants to play life on hard mode because, why not?
If you're in the outer banks of the universe, at the very edge of a
Right.
wormhole, as it were, you might as well do all, because they have faced death. How many
Exactly.
episodes?
Exactly.
Every season they face death a bunch of times. You might as well,
Yeah.
a bunch of weird stuff just happened to me. I am going to live it up at the Tongo table and
Exactly.
bet all my latinum against the Ferengi, because I might interact with my younger self in a mirror upside down without any error in the base. So
Yeah.
so let's do this. Or like whatever.
Yeah,
Characters
she's
come,
just got
characters
this like
go.
she's always got like she's a very calm, logical person, but then she's just got this like woo, yeet yeet kind of energy
Yeah.
that I like.
Fuck it. YOLO.
And this,
Yeah,
YOLO
exactly.
indeed.
Except
Or
in her
or,
case.
or
Eight
not.
times.
Or not.
I really feel like this episode perfectly encapsulates where Dax landed, because for the first 3 years, a lot of people sort of tagged her as the as sort of the weak link. Her acting wasn't super great in the pilot.
She was
But
one
I
of the
think-
people that it took a while, and characters it took a while to kind of find their feet,
Yes.
Yeah.
I think. But then she got really, she became wonderful.
Exactly. And I think part of that is because it took a long time for the Trill to sort of make sense. Possibly
Right.
even to the writers. Like I don't even, what I think is great about the Trill is stuff that is kind of hard to say out loud, but it's stuff that comes out in moments. It's like, oh yeah, I was a gardener that one time 200 years ago. I really think the turning point of Dax's character writing on the show was when she got into this relationship with Worf.
Yeah.
And that is not always the case. A lot of times you get in a relationship and the characters get kind of insular and they stop trying.
The arc has
But
ended.
The
You're
arc has
done.
ended. Yeah, Sam,
Mhm.
Diane, and everything.
Yeah.
But the thing is, they just found good ways to make each other so stubborn
Yeah.
and like
And the two actors have great chemistry.
great
really do.
chemistry.
And Star Trek has always been really good about like sort of finding who has who on their cast has chemistry and just letting them go
yeah.
with that.
So speaking of great chemistry, I love the moment in this episode where Jodzia, Dax and Worf are in their bedroom, and you get like the image of the bed first thing, like the camera
Yes.
opens on the bed and then pans over and like, oh, and you
Like,
see
okay.
Dax in her nightgown, vibrant purple nightgown, and then you see Worf in his full coverage pajamas, hair down, letting his hair down. And like he prays, and Dax is like, oh, okay, he's doing his thing. And then the camera stays on him, and the nightgown is flung in his face. And then like it pans over to her opening the blanket. But then when Kira calls them, Dax is completely, we assume, nude under the blanket, but Worf is still in his full coverage pajamas from his wrists to his ankles. Like, oh, good for you, Worf. Thank you so much. On behalf of everyone receiving, thank you for giving. Like, that is really great. Like, he clearly gets something out of taking good care of his wife in the bedroom. Like, that's really, and thank you
Wow,
so
that's
much,
like a
Star
Sherlock
Trek.
Holmes analysis of their that like whole implication. I had never played that out.
Like, because
But you're correct.
I mean, I don't know how it works with Klingons, but
I
in
hear
other
where you're going.
episodes, they're like snarling, and you can assume that there's like clothing tearing, and they get really violent when they are getting sexy with each other. But in this episode, he is calm. She's all excited, and when they wake up, he is still fully clothed. Oh, hey, good for you, Worf. You're a giver. Everybody loves a giver.
I feel like it would be a matter of honor for him.
Of course.
Can we also talk about like how great it was that like Worf was super excited about his wedding?
Yeah.
Like not just getting married, but like specifically his wedding, and like how he had like thought about his wedding ever since he was like a boy. And it's like, that's awesome.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's so sweet. And Dax like wheedled him. He's like, you got to plan the wedding. We did
Yeah.
your wedding.
Yeah.
I want to go to a hotel and have room service and only feel guilty about how pampered I feel. I don't want to sweat. I don't want bugs. And to that effect, like in the episode, there are several moments where like lizards crawl over her and she's all, why?
I think the fact that Dax and Worf are both, sort of, for lack of a better term, not only aliens but like multicultural aliens who have had, lots of experience with diverse cultures, makes it possible to do that kind of bickering and all of that to be like framed to be funnier than, like, for the love of God, than it was with the O'Briens.
Yeah. Oh.
Right.
Like, somehow like Worf and Dax can do this, and it just doesn't seem like, toxic heteronormativity. It's like, well, he's a Klingon, she's a Troll. What do they expect?
It's healthy discussion with an edge that isn't toxic. Nobody loses, nobody really wins.
Right.
And it's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be healthy.
Yeah.
Healthy,
And the fact that they like have so much love and respect for each other as individuals and as Starfleet officers and everything else.
the stakes are really low. Nobody's in complete control.
Yeah.
They're respectful. It's still like fun and like there's still some competition there, but it's good. It's respectful and healthy.
I think that first scene on the runabout before they even run into the guy is kind of the perfect example of that, because you can see, line by line, you could see them steer around potential arguments, like 2 or 3 potential arguments, I think. But I remember she's like, wow, you're really surrendering. And he's like, surrender? And she's like, oh.
Oh, crap, I said the word. Oh, no.
Like, that could have been a 3-hour fight, and probably in earlier times may have been a 3-hour fight, but they're mature.
Well,
Yeah.
one of my favorite things is like when he, and there was some of that on this episode, and then in others as well, when he sort of plays with her expectation of him that he has no sense of humor or fun, and will like kind of subvert that, or like just be really, really straight faced about something.
That was a joke.
Yes, exactly. Remember, there was one episode where he said that he had written her some Klingon love poem that was and made up this big ritual thing about it, and she shouldn't laugh and all of that, and then it was like, this is the story of a little ship that took a little trip.
Oh, I remember that. I really don't like that episode except for that one 30-second scene.
I don't even remember what the episode was, but yeah, that was so hilarious. That was charming.
It was the one where they shrink to like a the size of an atom.
Because of course they do.
Shrinking is never good. Oh my! I just know.
We learned nothing from Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
Season 3 of The Boys. Oh my God.
You're right about it's great that Worf was excited about his wedding. I admit I kind of got tired of some of his like groomzilla tendencies a bit. But like this is a special time because it's after the wedding. We are about to lose Jodzia, sadly.
Right.
Because this is literally about 7 weeks, I think, from the end of season 6 and her death. And I wish there were more of this,
Yeah.
Partly because, this is not a series that is super great at writing mature relationships. The O'Briens, perfect example. It did strike me many times just looking at them, like they've got it. Like they've put in the work, and they were
great. I mean, for like Star Trek of the time, it was actually pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there was Cisco, Cisco and Cassidy were a good relationship. Worf and Dax. I honestly always sort of liked, even though Bashir was just like slimy and alarming at the beginning, but like the fact that he remained friends with his ex, Lita. It's like that was an extremely civil, amicable breakup. That was a good thing to show. So,
I love the moment in this episode where Cork and Bashir are playing Tongo, and then Cork uses Dax against Bashir in order to win.
Yes.
And Bashir gets all emotional and really, you're playing against Cork. Why would Cork bring this up in the middle of a game of Tongo? This has nothing to, are you drinking? Use your super-powered brain to see right through this, fatal conceit. I was watching the episode and I said out loud, these two people had no chances with
Oh,
Dax.
yeah.
Absolutely. Like, the science fiction is that they thought that they had any chance with Dax at all. They're not mature enough. They don't have enough going on. Like, she clearly values her career, and she needs a person who is stable. And Worf is some of those things, but these guys have none of that. They have none of those things, and they're both like, Quark instigates it. What if she was our last true chance at? And like, you guys had no chance.
Oh, I don't think.
No chance.
I don't think Quark ever seriously thought he had a chance.
No, but he says it, and that
Yes.
has both Bashir and the
Right.
audience thinking, "Huh, baby, no, absolutely not.
Of
There's
course
no
not.
way. There's no way." And Dax has both said and shown with her actions that both have, like, not even an opportunity for a quickie. Like, there is no way that she is ever going to reach a mental space where she is desperate enough, lonely enough, drunk enough, high enough, like, at the edge of
You would
death
just be
enough.
like, you would just be like, I'll get laid in my next life.
Yeah, like,
I-
it's fine. It's fine. I have
These are my
more things
options.
to
I
work
choose
on.
celibacy. I'll come,
I
I'll just
can
get laid
supply
in the
my own
next
orgasms. It's
life.
fine. I don't need to lower myself to this, which is what it would be. Like, she doesn't play it off that way, but she is a quality woman, and they, on the other hand, are maybe never get there.
And
That's fine.
part of it, too, is the difference between season 1 Bashir and season 6. It's almost a different character. Quark doesn't even have to try that hard to get to knock him off the game.
At
And
a very basic level, Bashir is deeply insecure and may always well be. And Quark, because he's Quark and like his only goal is acquisition, Bashir is so easy. And
Yeah, but I also feel like, I mean, come on, if I were in Quark's position, like, if a person who is that smart allows themselves to be played that easily, come on, who among us would not play them in that case?
Oh, all's fair.
Yeah. I would have done the same thing Quark would have done, because come on, it's not like,
hey guys,
you're not
you want
fighting.
to see something funny?
Man. Yeah.
I'm gonna do something funny. Watch this. And it is. It's sad, but it's also hilarious.
Yes.
And O'Brien tries to warn him too.
What are you doing? I'm making a choice.
That is so. I sort of don't like this subplot, but I do like that Deep Space Nine sort of cares about how the characters, recreate.
And
they
I
show
like
them
the
at
fact
play.
that they don't all do it by like playing in string quartets and putting on
Right.
Shakespeare plays like they do on Star Trek, on Next Generation. It's like, no, they're gonna like gamble and drink.
I'm gonna do some Tai Chi.
Or, yeah,
That's fun.
exactly.
I mean, that seems calming and restful, but
Yeah. And the theme of like competition really is all over this episode. I consider it sort of merchandise malpractice that nobody has invented a game of Tongo. I would
Right?
play Tongo.
Right?
is there Dabo?
No
Dabo
Dabo
exist?
either. No Dabo
Oh.
either. But like I mean, think of these things. Confront, evade,
No, that
full
was-
consortium.
that did sound completely fascinating, I have to say.
Yeah, and we know basically what it is. It's Monopoly, right?
Yeah.
It's Monopoly, but like,
Sure.
there's this weird thing you spin and
Mhm.
wheel of chance. I don't know. That's what we're gonna do. We're gonna come up with rules for Tongo right here.
Oh dear God, no.
But
Except
not
in our
right now.
version, the spinning thing is actually a sushi counter. And when it
Ooh.
stops, you take the sushi out and you eat it.
Yes,
Oh, I
Yes.
like that.
With little
I like that
sake cups.
idea.
yes.
I like that idea partly because I'm hungry.
Yeah, now we all want sushi, Kitty. Way to go, thank you.
Sorry, not sorry.
And who has a replicator? I know I don't.
Speaking of the O'Briens, I always enjoy on this show when they throw out one of the. God, I can't believe Keiko's been away for 6 months. 6 whole months for some reason.
Wonder what that actress might be doing.
When Keiko's gone, Bashir is kind of the most important person in O'Brien's life.
We're quite.
When Keiko's
That's a
gone,
wonderful thing.
Only then, Carl? Only then?
Well, that's the other thing, yeah. When Keiko's gone or there,
Yeah.
Bashir's the only person.
Yeah.
It's an emotional mistress. Bashir is the emotional
Oh, yeah.
mistress.
This is again though like one of the areas where they're good at figuring out which actors have chemistry, and I don't not necessarily sexual, but just these guys are great together. They're fun.
I love that Bashir enters the episode saying, we have a date in Berlin, we have to stop the Nazis.
Oh yes.
Why
That
aren't
was
you
cool.
in your tux? That's cool. That seems like a worthy use of the holodeck.
Yeah.
Let's go to a holosuite and pretend
Yeah.
we're killing Nazis. Let's do more of that in 2020, please.
Yeah. But it's also kind of like a parallel to whatever mission it is that they're on, that Worf and Dax then wind up on.
Speaking of the mission, that bit where the Cardassian says, "I can't believe I'm talking to a Klingon. Ugh, a Klingon, a Klingon." Like, oh, thank you
I
for
like that.
showing us what racism looks like. That is very interesting. Racism is wrong because we know Worf is good.
It's like a reminder, like at any point someone could come in and like just reduce you to their stereotype of you. And I also do love the trope of you have to rescue someone, but that someone is a jerk.
Yeah.
It just makes it worse.
He has the information we need to save millions of people. We have to save him to do it. Unfortunately, we do have to save him to do it.
Sadly, the information is in his brain.
And we just save the brain. Do we have to save the rest of him too?
We don't have the technology.
It's
sorry.
a package deal. Aw.
I was going to take a moment to praise the studio where the jungle is, because I'm pretty sure it's a studio. I don't think that's location, but something about it. I like something about it. It reminds me of like some kind of 80s fantasy movie that might have been on Saturday afternoon or something, like Beauty and the Beast or something. Do you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, with
Yeah.
Ron Perlman and what's her face from?
Yeah.
I can't believe I'm forgetting her name. She's awesome. She seems like a kick-ass
You
woman.
know,
Anyway,
here's a fun reference thing about Bashir and Star Trek. Bashir's quarters, which we rarely see, but when we have seen them, they are modeled after, and I've never read this, but it's like really clear because I watched it like right before I watched an episode of Deep Space Nine. It looks like the cabinet of Dr. Caligari.
Really?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes, Bashir's quarters are German expressionist with these like sort of weird curved windows, and I had like watched Cabinet of Dr. C on YouTube, and then I was watching. I was like, oh my god, it's the same thing, and like clearly, like it's so much. It's like no, this was not an accident.
That's a reference for your podcast listeners.
I
Very
know,
cool.
right? Yeah.
Fascinating. I mean, I guess it makes sense. I mean, they're both sort of like, medical geniuses. But
Yeah.
do they go too far?
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Hmm. And also, there was probably just some set designer who was like, I'm just going to amuse myself with this.
There's a lot of that on both these shows.
Oh, yeah.
honestly.
So what I really appreciated after I made myself listen to the intro to DS9 and Battlestar Galactica when I watched the episodes, so I got the whole experience. And intro songs just, like, first, a lot of TV shows either have very short intro songs, or in many episodes they just skip the songs if it's not on a special something on Netflix or something on HBO. Usually they just skip over the song, but with DS9 you get the classic Star Trek song, and with Battlestar Galactica, the intro song reminded me of Buffy, actually.
Ooh,
Buffy the
interesting.
Vampire Slayer. It reminded me a lot of 90s science fiction and fantasy TV shows. And it took me back. I got a little nostalgic, especially listening to Battlestar Galactica.
BSG also, they did that thing where they would intercut shots from the episode into the intro. And I don't know that any show, I've never seen another show do that.
I used to know people who hated that.
Oh
because of
yeah,
the
because it's like
spoilers.
spoilery, right?
But, yeah.
I like the kind.
from this season.
Yeah.
But
So there's no reason you have to skip weeks. You just skip weeks in order for the timing. All of the episodes are fully edited and ready for airing. You just don't in order to make us upset. Thanks, guys. Thanks, TV producers. We don't appreciate you.
Fun fact: in the '70s, Battlestar Galactica, they had a opening gambit that would go, "I'm Lorne Green. Here are scenes from this week's episode of Battlestar Galactica." So they did it. That is kind of a take from the original.
Okay.
But obviously
But a
cooler.
better one, a more
better
artistic one.
As is often the case.
Unsurprisingly.
It's a teaser rather than a plot reveal.
Right. Right.
You know what I love about sort of Battlestar and openings? Battlestar is one of the few shows where it opens with text on the screen, and yet is not like horrible. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because most sci-fi, like we're all familiar with like cheesy sci-fi movies, which began at the end of the 10th decade after the fallening. Man has collapsed into so and so and such, and it always like just smacks of trying too hard.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess it's just that Battlestar is so intricate that I think we all kind of accept that we need this. Okay, look, the Cylons were created by man.
It's our fault. It's totally our fault. We admit guilt. We are guilty as charged. It's our fault. So sorry. By the way, we're trying to fix it by murdering, just murdering.
I just sort of want to talk about that final scene where they're just quietly and beautifully talking to each other. You know, this is not a show that is known for like romantic artistry or stylism, but I found it really moving that they basically cover it just on tight shots on both of their faces, switching back and forth. Dax is really has gone through the ringer. But there's sort of a warmth coming from her. You know, so much about capturing romance is about like not trying so hard and just letting it seep out.
I was super invested in them as a couple.
Yeah,
I mean, you know, everybody really wanted, you know, they were good.
I firmly believe that in order for something to be sexy or for something to be romantic, it doesn't have to be sexy or romantic to anyone else. As long as it's sexy and romantic for the two people interacting with each other. If they try to perform romance, if they try to perform sexiness, it's not going to work. But if they're sincerely like saying things that they, at least the characters, firmly believe, other people will pick up on that sincerity and it will be conveyed. And I've seen this in real life, and I've seen this like on TV and on stage and radio. It seemed like a genuine, tender moment that the actors acknowledged. Like, this is real. And the lines were a little, I don't know what to say. Well, you could say. And like, on the one hand, that could have been a dick move. But because the character Worf was so sincere, you could say thank you for saving my life. You could say you would do the same thing. Well, I don't know, my career is important to me. Like, they're still like each other's spouse, so I get it. And they had been talking about, no, I have a sense of humor. I'm very funny, both of them, the entire episode. So like, it's a callback. And then you could say that you love me. And that's like, that's so sweet. That's so, and you see this vulnerability from two people who refuse to be vulnerable, either culturally or historically as a character trait, in a public place, being very sincere and vulnerable and intimate.
You know, one thing they always did with Worf and Dax, and that the whole Tongo plot does, they really talk each other up to other people.
I love that too.
Which you never really see the O'Briens do that.
Yeah.
You know, they never give that to the O'Briens. But Worf and Dax are always, you know, oh, they're so great. Of course, I'm going to bet on her. Blah blah. You know, they have a great deal of respect for each other.
And then Worf takes that well when it doesn't pan. I'm going to bet on my wife. That is my wife. This is what we do. And like the respect and taking it on the chin. Well, my wife is not perfect. And like not being a dick about it, just respecting, like, and that is part of who he is. But like the juxtaposition of these character, like the availability of character flaw and character positivity or positives of Worf, like the depth and the range that they both get in this episode is, like, as you said, Carl, it's a shame we don't get to see that in other episodes, but we do see it in this one. Aw,
Yeah.
it's not a fake marriage, it's real. They're both taking this serious. Aw.
Yeah.
Too bad she's gonna die.
And part of the reason it does work for them to joke around, like you could say I love you, he knows. Like he's not really asking for anything when he says that. Battlestar Galactica, you can't go home again. It's time to find Starbuck, who got separated from the fleet while protecting her flight students in last week's episode. Adama and Apollo, who feel guilty for blowing up at her over Zach's death, pledge that they will find her whatever it takes. But they waste a lot of fuel and a lot of pilots, and both of them are in short supply. Adama promises they'll stop when they know she's out of oxygen. That moment comes, he does not stop. Meanwhile, Starbuck regains consciousness and finds her way to a disabled Cylon raider. She crawls inside and tries to figure out how to make it fly. Adama and Apollo keep pushing until Roslyn comes in and confronts them face to face. You've lost perspective, she says. You've put us at risk. As the Adamas finally give up, they see a Cylon raider come in. It's Starbuck. She's hurt but alive. She lands, and Adama stands over her proudly, giving her his last stogie. What did you think of You Can't Go Home Again?
I thought the Cylon Raider was one of the most astonishingly disgusting and also really inventive designs.
Right?
One thing that is always a fun thing for me, and I think is a link between BS9 and Battlestar occasionally, DS9, is, when you have to use the alien technology. When you have to figure out that thing that, like, you didn't build it, and the people who did build it do not think like you do. That was fun. That was always really fun to watch. I think a big difference between the two episodes is that Adama in this, like, Worf and Dax would have had that same conflict in that situation at any point. With Adama, this was very much like, oh no, this thing between me and Starbuck just happened. I'm acting out of a lot of psychological conflict that's just happening right at this moment.
Yeah, felt very guilty, certainly.
Yeah.
When Battlestar Galactica was huge, when it was huge, and the only other exposure I've had to Battlestar Galactica is that episode of Portlandia where they go into the guy's house and they write the next episode of Battlestar Galactica, and like they lose their jobs and they don't sleep and they just watch all the episodes and then they write the episode. That is the only exposure I had. So this episode is the first episode I'd ever seen, and I was not prepared for like the deep, dark California desert shots that reminded me of Outside Somerville at this very moment, with like the weakening sun and like the dusty wind and like you can't breathe and the overwhelming and like the
mood.
Like such a vibe. And the lens that they put on the camera so it looks like they're on another planet, and how they've edited the video so it doesn't look like California, but clearly it's like somewhere in California. All it's missing is just like the telephone wires in the back, or like a plane going over that isn't a Cylon. Very 2000s.
It wasn't quite deserty enough for you to be expecting like Walt and Jesse to be rolling in with the RV, making the meth at any point. Not quite that deserty. A little too lush.
Not New Mexico.
So
what's interesting is that this show was shot in Vancouver.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So they could have been I mean,
Desert
I don't.
Vancouver.
I don't know
the
if there's a Vancouver desert.
The Arrakis neighborhood of Vancouver.
Oh my God.
I mean, they could have shot that part in California, though. I mean, that does. I take your point. I mean, that really looks like a number of different sci-fi planets. On our first episode, friend of the show Liz remarked how fascinated she was by the concept of Cylon raiders that are alive. Like, they don't have pilots; they are pilots. And so I still kind of have a hard time getting my head around what Starbuck actually did, because apparently she climbed into its brain and then started moving it around like a puppet.
Yeah.
And so she literally did the Pickle Rick thing. She like literally
I'm a pickle.
I pickle Starbuck. Ah! she was flying a corpse.
Yeah.
And like I don't know if that would work, but
As
I
we say
love
around-
that
we
it
call
would
it around
work,
here,
and I want it to
Thursday.
work. As we call it around
So-
here, Thursday.
I hadn't realized that the woman who plays the president in Battlestar Galactica also played the president's wife in Independence Day.
That's right.
And I'm all, oh my God, she's
Mary
about to
McDonnell.
ask what's her face if she's a ballet dancer. And in fact, she's an exotic dancer. Like, she's going to die after the aliens come. And in Independence Day, the majority of their tech was also biotech. Like, when Will
That's
Smith
true.
rips open the exoskeleton suit, he has to get through all that viscous stuff. And then, like, when Brent Spiner also, like, opens up the suit with the scalpel, like, he has to get through all the stuff. And it's like, oh, okay. And then we never hear from her again. She disappeared. She's in witness program.
Her role in this was so much like Ben Sisko. That, you know, it's like you want to see those two getting a drink together and just being like, oh my God, can you believe
It's like,
this family
Yeah.
drama? How do we...
it made me wonder if the president, was evil.
Literally the answer to is this character evil is just like, what episode is it? Because like in BSG, like they all just cycle through. Like I don't think she was evil in this one, but she'll get there and like maybe cycle back out of it again. And you just
Got a
go
lot
through a
going
lot
on.
with them. They're on
Yeah.
journeys.
And this show is also like, so what is evil anyway? What is it?
Yeah.
And which is
And
one
like
of its
when you're facing dilemmas and problems and questions that have never been faced before, like how do you even choose?
yeah.
Like
One of the
what is
things-
even how do you even make a moral decision? Or when there are so many competing priorities.
The first season of Battlestar in particular, it is kind of a deconstruction of the sort of things we told ourselves after 9/11. Not to get too like dark too quick,
Yeah.
but so this week, we leave no one behind. Roslyn was forced to leave a bunch of people behind in the pilot, and it was actually one of the most moving scenes because she had made all these promises, but she knew she couldn't fulfill them because of technology.
Yeah.
But I mean, this one reason I like her performance in this, she became president from being Secretary of Education, and one thing that Mary McDonnell
jump.
said.
I mean, even as Secretary of Education, she was a teacher before that. Like she
Yes.
did not come up from she didn't like come up from a political family or, start from that area. She was very much on the
She wanted to help kids.
Yeah, exactly. She was like a kindergarten teacher or something like
Aw.
that. So she's a great character, and she grows into the political role she has to play. But it's like, no, this is like for her. This was somebody for whom Secretary of Education was kind of a stretch role,
Yeah.
let alone like civilian leader of the war of like all
Congratulations,
humanity.
Madam President.
They
Oh,
also do in
God.
the show one of the coolest, for all the special effects, one of the most simple things is something that a community theater could do quite easily, which is, you don't see it in this episode, but a whiteboard with the number of people left alive written on
Yeah.
it
Wow.
that gets updated.
Yeah.
I think that's in Rosalind's office. Yeah, right? Oh my God, look at your
It
face,
is.
Kitty.
it's-
Yeah, no,
Horrifying.
Well,
it is,
yeah.
but like, it's such a simple effect, and yet it's like, oh my God, and it just keeps the keeps the viewer so oriented to what the
We
stakes
could
are.
have gotten that, and instead we got the doctor like feeling up the air.
Yeah.
Yeah, like if he's the doctor, who do we call to make sure he's okay?
You know, one reason I put you together on this show is because I know you're both writers, and Kitty, of course, you're a critic. You know, Robin, you've written a number of things.
I have, yes, and how?
Frequently.
Frequently.
All the time, every week.
Including in
Yes.
the Boston Globe.
Yes, and
And,
Newsweek and Harvard Business Review. And
Good job if they can get it.
What do you think of the way, just looking at these people, what do you think of the way Roslin and Adama interact? I mean, Roslin, this is sort of the first time the Adamas are on the same side against Roslin, which is kind of fascinating.
So she's the president, who
Yes.
happens to be a woman. And there are these two men, and it just so happens that the military gets to govern itself, which is interesting. And they frequently say, well, it's a military decision, Madam President. What the hell?
Yeah.
Come on, that's real convenient.
I should say, in the pilot, they strike a deal that Adama takes the military decisions and Roslin makes the political decisions. But
there's
I love
not a clear-cut line of what,
exactly. I love
what.
that agreement is already kind of splitting because you can't separate them.
And whether or not, and I would say, both of these people, and again, this is one thing that I think makes both episodes so compelling, is that there's no villains in anything. Like, really, everybody involved at this moment is like, no, we're all trying to do the right thing.
So
We're all kind of moving towards the same goals here, but everybody's, good people can still have priorities and motives that conflict.
it's interesting that you say that because you have more of a history of the show.
Mm-hmm.
The person dropping in on just this one episode,
Yeah, fascinating.
I disagree because the show was shot and edited in such a way as to make me think that Rosalind was made out to be the villain in this scenario because Starbuck is a beloved character, right? And we want her to succeed despite the fact that there are no pilots, there are no planes. The Cylons are a horrifying threat, and just one will kill off lots of people, and we have no people left. Even though people are very busy making people, there are very few people left, right?
Yes.
And the threat of Cylons is so intense and such a looming threat, right? Of a threat. It's so imminent that they can't take these risks, and yet because Starbuck is a beloved character, we're willing to take these risks because of emotional connection.
This is Adama seriously going off kind of on a cliff, and the fact that his executive officer is like, no, dude, if Saul is trying to rein you in on this.
The question of where the sympathy lies is always open in Battlestar. Because on some level, I mean, if you want to go down to the numbers, they spent almost half their fuel. This is the one Battlestar on a ship that can be attacked at any time. The audience is definitely on Starbuck's side.
But the whole theme of the show is that anybody under conditions of that kind of stress can make a horrifically bad decision. Not only strategically, but ethically.
Yeah.
And you see everybody doing it sooner or later. And I think this is kind of, it's like, well, it's very convenient that, it did work out. But
So it's interesting because now that we're having this conversation, it makes me think about the map. How many people has Starbucks saved? Mm-hmm. How many times has Starbucks saved their ass? Is she worth half the fuel? Is she worth all of these resources?
She is worth a lot. She's worth a lot.
So then, considering, you'll tell me the odds, considering the odds, and the ethical, just the sheer numbers, the times that she has saved their butts, it does make sense because she, in theory, if she survives, and she does, she will save their butts again.
She has, right, you have humanity has a much better chance of surviving the Cylons if Starbuck is alive. It's interesting to see a kind of inversion of the gender roles here in that Adama in this episode is the one who's just, wildly emotional. No,
I'm gonna argue.
He doesn't look it on the surface because that's Edward James Olmos, who does not make facial expressions. But trust me, for his decision making,
strong acting choice.
His decision making is very emotional, and Roslin, the president, is the one who's very, no, this is the math.
This is also a fascinating dynamic to watch with the other people on the ship. Saltai is the first officer, is very close with Adama, and he would not go against him, even if he was wrong. One thing I like about this is, when you look at Adama and Mr. Gaeta, the clock runs out, and it is revealed that he has already begun to pull pilots off because he knows it's time. This pisses Adama off. Why are they returning? I didn't tell him to return. So he doubles down, and that's the moment he decides to go past the oxygen clock. And I really think at that point, everyone knows something's wrong.
Yeah.
We've all, I'm sure, been at jobs where our boss is losing it, and no one can figure out how to say anything.
And seriously, for Saltai to go against Adama is just
But that moment,
absolutely.
yeah, and that moment with her and Roslin, and he's always been a little suspicious of Roslin, but he's
Saltai is sus of everyone.
Yeah,
he just has resting sus face.
Yeah, yeah. Well, this is what's moving, is that Adama, I believe we sort of know this at this point, but Adama was the one who pulled him out of an alcoholic funk and gave him this job.
Right.
And what I think is remarkable is, with one exception, Ty does not really even raise his voice in this.
Yeah.
He's
I'm
not the one comparing personal feelings.
Which for a guy who will throw hands.
Yeah. And it's kind of his dynamic. He is often the badass. He's often the jerk who makes Adama look good to the rest of the crew.
He's often an old man yelling at cloud.
He's often an old man yelling at clouds. Kara was family, says Adama during the 2 minutes when he had given up. Kara was family. Sometimes for family you break the rules. Do you really break the rules for family?
At which point his son is like, well, what if it had been me?
Yeah.
And Adama's like, then we never would have given up. So it's okay, some people are family and some people are really family.
That's the slippery slope, isn't it?
Which is damn, Adama. That's well, no, I don't think you do. Not if you're in a position like that. But again, that makes their position kind of interesting in that he was not meant to be in that position.
Yeah.
This is why I'm no, Worf and Dax never should have been allowed to go on a mission together in the first place.
It's a conflict of interest.
Right. But it's okay, the Adamas, there's huge conflicts of interest and all kinds of things, but nobody asked for this. There's kind of no choices. Who else is going to run stuff?
Yeah.
So, that's what BSG is really about, is, how do you make choices when there are no good choices to make?
Yeah.
The other thing that occurred to me about that line is, Kara Thrace, Starbuck, broke the rules ostensibly for family. She and Zach were involved, and as a result, he
Right.
died. So,
right.
The rules are there to protect you too.
And also, Kara left her abusive mother. It's who are we calling family here?
Yeah. The quote is very difficult, and I feel it lacks depth. It lacks understanding.
Yeah.
And it's problematic. Families themselves can be problematic. You can have family members that you don't talk to, and you don't see or you don't acknowledge. But you're still blood related. But then again, you have family members that you have no blood relation to.
That's as Adama and Kara.
So he chooses her, right? It's not an all-encompassing statement. And if you're in a situation like Battlestar Galactica, where every choice has humongous ramifications, even if it's like red or white with your dinner, like maybe that's the last glass of either one. Like you don't know.
I think dinner's all gray and green after about season 2.
Algae.
Good for them.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So I like greatness people.
That's a good point. A quote it reminds me of is "It's not personal, it's business" from Godfather, a movie in which it is eventually basically revealed that all these so-called business things are actually personal. It's an axiom, but how helpful is it really?
Yeah,
And what I think is, and that's why I think it's so funny that Adama just completely undermines it in the very next sentence by saying like, okay, but I would break more rules for you because like you're more family than she is. So it's like, oh, okay. So you're just at that point you're just kind of like defining these things however you want.
The rules are set in place to protect me, and they're set in place to protect you. But anybody who has learned rules well enough knows that the rules are limited, right? So rules don't include everything. So you learn the rules really well to get around them or to completely negate them. So like you learn the rules to break them safely and for good purposes or for good purposes for you. But like in order to not do harm. Hopefully. And in this particular case, he's like, yeah, but you for family. And like, that is completely ignoring what the rules are for.
Oh, yeah.
The rules are for, we would have saved Starbuck, which in turn would save the rest of humanity, which there isn't much of. But we happen to be vulnerable of a Cylon who was Starbuck, but they didn't know that for a little while. It took Starbuck being an amazing pilot and pulling a Top Gun in order to reveal that Starbuck was Starbuck. And first she had to sort of DIY a Cylon ship in order to do it. Like the whole I'm talking to the camera and breathing in the tube. Come on. Okay. I'm just gonna seal this patch up myself. Perfect. Airtight now. Like, come on.
Well, let me put this in another context too. This is a really important episode for Starbuck, in part because we have been told for the previous 5 weeks that she is not just an excellent fighter, but she's like one of the best. And it's become a little bit like, we've seen her do great stuff, but I'm not sure we've seen her do like unique stuff until now. This is pretty unique, but it's also sort of hard to follow. There's some episodes of Doctor Who where he doesn't have a companion. I'm thinking this is the Tom Baker Doctor Who. He doesn't have a companion, so he's sort of talking to the audience and himself at the same time, and it never quite goes off the way I think they hope it does. But on the other hand, that scene is shot like nothing else. What did you think
so
of?
Gooey. So gooey.
Yeah, so gooey.
So what I told myself while watching the scene was, if I can believe that she's not in some lot somewhere with lots of dust and rocks, then I can believe that she can bioengineer this Cylon ship with technology that she doesn't understand. She's a good mechanic. She's a good fighter and a pilot. She can figure this out. She can fly anything. And I had to force myself to suspend my disbelief. And let's also believe that she was dragging herself across the desert, bleeding out without air, and also found the time and the paint to write Starbuck on the bottom. Like, that was the part I didn't believe. I could make
I hate Starbuck.
I could make myself believe everything else. The part I couldn't believe was her finding the time and the energy, because not only has she she doesn't have oxygen, she doesn't have food, she doesn't have water. You can go without food, you cannot go without water. She had one sack full of supplies-ish. Was yellow paint in that sack? enough yellow paint to write in big bold letters Starbuck.
This show is so in love with Starbuck. It is revolting. You know, she's so badass. The show is so in love with her. It's kind of like the way, you know how Hitchcock was so in love with Cary Grant? Like, and
Yes.
all of his movies make the Cary Grant characters like so impossibly awesome and suave and all that. That like, I kind of just like reflexively hate them in response. And I feel the same way about Starbuck. Is like they want her to be like, oh, you know, all the men want her, all the women want to be her. She's like the best pilot, but also like really awesome, but also like she fights authority, and it's like, oh God, she's like, you know, a cool girl in space, and they can just like make her do all of this, yeah, completely magical shit. I don't like her. I don't like how she's written. I don't like the character.
Now, last week on the show, we had guests Emily Teradash and Jillian Daniels. And they took opposite opinions on Starbuck.
Oh yeah.
As well. You know, I think this debate is still going on, and it's a good one.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out what I like and don't like, because I like Katie Sackhoff.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
There's no question.
Her performance is great.
I like what I know they're trying to do, and I even like. I really do love this, you know, flaws aside. The way it's shot kind of reminds me of Alien a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And I should say, I'm assuming that paint is actually made out of blood. I think that's Cylon blood. That's just my pet theory, though.
Okay.
Um,
Except the inside of the ship is all red and gooey.
right.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, she
human
clearly had
blood.
some acrylics in that bag of hers.
Yeah. It should. I will admit, it should be more like messy, but it's
Human
already pretty
blood-
messy, to be fair.
Human blood is blue,
Uh-huh.
they say, until it hits air, right?
Yes.
So, not knowing anything about the universe, perhaps Cylon blood is red until it hits chrome and then it's yellow?
I like
I
that.
don't know.
And
But
her
thi-
like her
this-
handwriting was like that was extremely neat, which is like both unlikely for anybody who's that physically depleted,
Shaking.
and honestly
Yeah.
like not in character for Starbuck. I mean, like the
No,
former
yeah.
kindergarten teacher, she could do that. Like that's how she'd write. But it's like, come on, you know Starbuck's got shitty handwriting. Like, come
I don't
on,
have time.
come on.
In my spare time, I do calligraphy.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, no, this is not. No, this woman has like unbelievably terrible handwriting. Like, and it's a point of pride with her. Like, that's just who she is.
Yeah.
And that's why I don't like the characters. Like, whatever they need her to be able to do, all of a sudden.
Yeah,
You know.
I worry about that tendency going forward. I guess for me, they haven't crossed it here, just because the tech is so unfamiliar, and also she does get benched. Like she spends the next half season recovering.
Mm-hmm.
Like I do feel better about it if like it takes a toll.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I'm watching, Robin. I'm watching very closely what you're saying, because I think there is, you know, this show works when it avoids easy answers, and I think the character works when she can do amazing things, but not godlike things.
That it's like everybody else is working on a much more realistic level,
Yeah.
and then like Starbuck is this kind of like Indiana Jones.
When you are faced with a character who represents such absolutes, you're setting the audience up for disappointment. You're setting the character up for failure.
Right.
And Starbuck lacks depth because she's full of all these absolutes, and like
Mhm.
she's a genius and she can do
Yup.
anything as soon as she sees it.
Playing poker and smoking cigars and punching out her superior officers.
That's
Yeehaw.
you don't smoke like a chimney and in most cases not get cancer. You
Right.
don't drink like a fish and not have extreme hangovers, especially when you get out of your 20s. Good God. And the weight gain is just upsetting. Like, I'm just going to have cake for dinner.
Oh,
Well, it's
man.
the 7th day in a row, cake for dinner. Why am I 10 pounds heavier? Who knows?
Oh man,
Oh,
that's
adulthood blows.
man. My stupid birthday is coming up in a few more weeks again. I hate when that happens.
God, it's like it happens every year. Come
Why?
The
Why?
years start coming and they do not stop coming. You know, they're correct.
on. Sure are.
Well, we're out of time. I want to thank you for seeing these shows. These episodes were Change of Heart, Deep Space Nine, and You Can't Go Home Again, Battlestar Galactica. Who, in your opinion, this week, who wins on the theme of not leaving people behind?
Oh, DS9, hands down.
DS9.
Especially with like the love and like the episode was so well written, hands down, DS9. It was such a you have your high highs and your low lows, and we learned so much about the characters, and they seemed realistic and relatable, especially if you've been in a relationship, a long-term relationship with mutual respect. Yeah, like, and like you saw the Doctor have his ass handed to him, and O'Brien made some mistakes, and Cork was Cork. Like, it had some, and Cisco was like menacing, but also like empathetic at the same time. Like, it was
And like
really,
once again regretted giving the kids the car.
yeah. Oh, God damn it! It has a scratch. I just got
Again.
it detailed. Yeah, hands down, DS9. Good show.
DS9. Robin, what do you think?
I would actually say Battlestar Galactica, because I think it was interesting that they showed. I mean, both episodes are about conflict of values, and what you do when it's not like good versus evil, but it's like, no, I want to do this, but I also want to do this. And in BSG, Adama was so driven in that particular moment by what had just happened between him and Starbuck, that these aren't necessarily always a question of values, but of just really temporary emotional states. And I also liked the fact that other people got to weigh in, whereas on Deep Space Nine, it was pretty much Worf and Dax figuring this out for themselves, then coming back to the ship, and Worf dealing with the repercussions, as opposed to a variety of people talking this out in the moment, which I like that. Also, like, the gooey intestine spaceship is just, as a visual, that's kind of awesome.
I was nodding my head, yes. Like,
yes.
Yeah.
I
Okay,
I will say, like, Gaius Baltar is a far less forgivable character than
Oh, yeah.
here. Oh my god. And like, not just morally, but like on kind of the acting level, he's always at this sort of cartoonish thing. It's
Yeah,
like,
I know what you
dear
mean.
God, man. So that's he's just always problematic. I seriously, I want to see like a skit where they give Bashir a head Dax, like Baltar's head 6.
Oh, what a great idea. Well, a split decision then.
Yeah.
It's a tough part of it is I really think these are both, not only are these both kind of series best episodes, it is hard to imagine either series without it. This is probably the Worf Dax marriage episode to beat all other marriage episodes. And this is also, for all the reasons you said, Robin, great drama on the Battlestar, but it's also kind of Starbuck being Starbuck in the most pure way.
Yeah, and I will say I found it more interesting. It's like, okay, and she doesn't even know that this whole debate is happening around her, whereas in Deep Space Nine, you only had 2 people, but at least one of them was the person who was under discussion.
Yeah, I'm going to give it to Battlestar as well, but by a hair. There are a lot of good Worf Dax episodes. I'm not sure if there's a better Adama drama. Lee, Bill, Kara, Ty, and probably everyone else in the CIC. So that means Battlestar is the winner this week on a very tough and very exciting.
I did not even know this was like a voting kind of competition.
Yeah, I didn't know it was a competition.
I did not know this.
Next week, which episode will have full monopoly? And which one will have total consortium? Thank you, Kitty. Thank you, Robin, for being here.
Yeah,
is there anything else you want to plug?
Nope. I am all good.
Just the holes in my ceiling.
Next week is the Deep Space Nine episode, Rules of Engagement, and the Battlestar episode, Litmus. And the theme is accountability. For Battlespace 9, I've been Carl. Thank you and good night.